Good evening, K-Man, and welcome to another issue of the Joey Ebanks radio show. I have guests in the studio with me this evening. We're going to be talking about the women's issue. Before I get into all of that, I need to let you all know that everything I say here is my own liability. I'm not scripted. It's not the responsibility of Vibe or anyone else. It's all me. And my guests are also assuming their own liability for what they say, so they'll be guarded by that as well. But before I introduce my guests and we get into the topic of today, I want to cover a few things very calmly, as a but somewhat of a gentleman anyway. Many people would have heard Ezra Miller on the radio this morning, reading from a list that he claimed he got. I don't really care how he got it. That's not really relevant. And that it was also posted on CNS as a news item. Now, I want to assure everyone, I and my lawyer have been trying for weeks to find out what I am being investigated for and why I was arrested on suspicion for. We found out today at about 1:30, when the RCIP emailed us the same list that they read this morning. Now, I have posted the emails on my Facebook page so you can see the date and time that we were notified. As far as I'm concerned, Ezra Miller and Duncan Taylor sat down and wrote that list themselves and instructed the RCIP to issue that as their investigation. And I have a few words for both of them this evening, but I want to go through for the listening audience 10 points I want to remind you of. 1, my suspension was done in cabinet, and Duncan Taylor released it to Emil Scott of the C4C, who called me and threatened me with it on March the 1st, which was Friday. I was then suspended or received a letter served on me on Saturday at about 5 o'clock, which was clarified yesterday by a caller. The current search warrant used for my house is defective. Duncan Taylor has threatened me with a lawsuit that has fabricated reasons in it in an attempt to shut me up about corruption in this country and what's going on. I have also received a lawsuit threat from Dan Scott, the chairman of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, and of course a family member of the C4C, and I've been told by other candidates, certainly the head of the C4C. I've also been threatened by that. His attorneys acting on his behalf, Maples, acting on Dan Scott's instructions. Dan Scott, the same Dan Scott, chairman of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, has written to every single media house in this country, demanding that they, whenever they interview me, that they get to review it and approve it prior to the media house making it available to the public. The Corruption Crime Unit and RCIP Commissioner has failed to act on the Ezra Ritz-Carlton work permit issue and the Auditor General Louis Bouchard issue with the 2011 ERA audit. Now, I believe that who needs to be included in that is also the chairman of the ERA board, who I've seen has her signature approving that audit. The RCIP has failed or refused to provide me and my attorney with information up until 1 o'clock this evening. So we have an interview tomorrow at 11, and this morning I was at the police station answering my bail at 10 o'clock. The detective was there. There was no discussion about a list or any charges being brought. It appears to be this document appears to have been created in order to do as much damage to me as it possibly can, and released to what I consider to be the governor's propaganda machine in CNS, and to his preferred candidate, Ezra Miller in Northside, who he apparently wants to see elected because he's refusing to let the Corruption Crimes Unit and the RCIP conduct the investigation of the Ritz work permit email. Now, Taylor's persistence in involving himself in this election has gone beyond what is expected of any governor in this country. He consistently gets involved. He consistently leaks and releases information that would harm candidates he doesn't want to see elected. So as far as I'm concerned, the current group of British election observers are here to guarantee a certain group gets elected, and I no longer believe that they can be trusted either. Now, that's covering everything that has led to this point. But Ezra, this is for you. And I got one for you too, Arden, directly following. So stay tuned, Arden, okay? As let me tell you something. There is really no limitations, statute of limitations on anyone who has carnal knowledge of a child, and you are going to tell what your involvement was with that and who it was, and anytime you feel like suing me for that, you go for it. So we can put some DNA on the table and we can check to see just who's lying. In Arden, the day is going to come when you're going to make public just how a certain past chairman of CUC obtained his status. Now, at some point, you're going to have to disclose this, because the FOI requests are going in from all different people to all different departments. And this information is being pulled out and it's coming out very quickly. Because I can tell you, there are senior civil servants who have had enough of the corruption in this country. There are members, very affluent members of the judiciary, who are approaching me, who are supporting me behind closed doors and making sure I get access to additional information on just what's going on. Talking and telling me about the number of arrest warrants that are wrong, and you all are going to stop this. I told you, Duncan Taylor, to stay out of our politics and to get out of my country. You obviously haven't heard, or you obviously think that you are too powerful to be removed, but you're not. You're going to leave my country, and you're going to leave it persona non grata, never to return as the undesirable that you are. Now, you threaten me that with a lawsuit that you claim I said you were going to destroy the country. Go online and read the article. It says Britain is out to destroy the country. I don't know quite when you could usurp Her Majesty's control and power and position and became Britain, and the English people in this country are not. So you need to sit down, little boy, stay out of my politics, stay out of my legal case, and do the right thing. If you don't, I am going to take you to task, and when I take you, I'm going to let you drag C4C and Ezra Miller with you to the task that I'm going to take you to. I am not afraid of you. I told you all to shoot me in the back of my head when this started. You chose not to. Now you want to be a candidate? I'm going to give you what a candidate gets. And to every Caymanian out there who has repeatedly said to me, I need to tone this down and show more respect to Duncan Taylor, I don't need your support either. You either stand up and fight for this country, you get out of my way as well. This is a serious issue. I am going to release everything I have to Fox News, to BBC, to every other news channel I can. I have already written to President Obama's administration. I have provided them with evidence. I've given them direction to where they can find the rest. And I am going to take this global. You want to take this another level, Duncan Taylor? Please do. I am not afraid of you. I invite you to take me on some more, because thus far you have shown one of two things. Either you're just plain incompetent, or you're an extremely vindictive fool. Now you stir my politics, you stir my legal case, and you give me my right to justice. Otherwise, son, I want to take you to the mat, and I'm going to beat you. Verbally, I am going to beat you every single day. Every chance I get, I'm going to beat you. I am a candidate in this election. This is a democratic process. This is the Cayman Islands. And you, sir, you need to stay in your place. Stay in your seat. Stay on West Bay Road. Enjoy the beach. Wrap up your last days here. Start packing your bags and get out of my country. Now, you have a good day, Duncan Taylor. Flavor, why don't we go to a nice commercial break, so we can take that part of the nastiness of the show and set it aside. We have some beautiful Caribbean ladies in the room. And we can come back, and we're going to talk about women's issues. I'm going to introduce my guests, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Keep that dial set right where it's at. Take a stand. When this issue became an issue on my Facebook page, with a lot of women saying, hey, we need this to be discussed publicly on the radio show, I reached out to 4 ladies. And I got 3. And I got 3 of the most outspoken Caribbean women that I know. We have one who, and each has a different country of origin. One's initial country of origin is Jamaica, one is Barbados, and one is Cayman. So we have in the studio, I'm going to start with the one from Cayman, which is Sandra Catron, that you all know. She's been a political and community advocate for years now. And then we have as well Miss Juliet Gooding, and she's originally, for her country of origin is Barbados, but she's been here a long time. She was the person who helped to develop the 911 and had that established. And she looks 20. I think she's retired. And then we have Patrice Donalds, who, of the countries of origin, is Jamaica. And these are well outspoken people. They're on Facebook. And when we get into the discussion, I'm going to have them each introduce themselves. But when they get into the discussion and you have questions, don't hesitate to contact them at their Facebook page. They have the electronic devices all going here. So I'm going to start with Juliet. Juliet, you want to just introduce yourself, let the people know, some of the things you've done community-wise. It's quite a bit you've done as well.
Well, let me first deal with you, Joey, for putting me at retirement. But the fact that I look like 20 and I'm retired, that's good.
Okay.
So,
see, I've been married for a long time.
Yeah, I've been here, quite a long time now, and being involved primarily I started out in football because I tend to like to work with the youth, making sure that our youth are off the street, making sure that they're studying, getting their education up. And as you said, set up 911. And involved in so many different things that I can't even begin to tell you. But my whole interest is in community-related events, but not just for the sheer fun of it, but
right.
The fact that I am very interested in the political environment in terms of what benefits our children. And so
this is the calmest I've heard you discuss politics in my life. I mean, normally you're very, strong debater. So I understand you want to come across the radio as being really nice. So Patrice, you want to just introduce yourself and let people know?
You want a little more fireworks, is what you're saying?
Yeah, some more fireworks.
All right, okay. I can attest to that. I give a little bit more of that. Youngest of 7 children, I had to fight for everything. Just wanted to say that even though each one of us has different countries of origin, we are all Caymanian because we have been here long enough to become a part of the fabric of the Caymanian people. And if we go back to the first settlers, we were all immigrants.
Yes.
So we are all Caymanian. Thanks very much.
Yes.
I will, however, state that my parents are Jamaicans. I was born here.
Right.
And I claim both heritages. One, because they're both important to me. I grew up with a certain lifestyle and a certain expectation, but I also grew up right here in the community. Throughout my time in the community, I've worked as a dance instructor. I've performed.
That's right.
I have, on occasion, helped with various gender equality or women's issues projects. I am doing that more now, one, because I have a personal perspective to add, whether it be friends that I've witnessed having situations that put them in compromising situations, or even my own situations. And so now, because it means something to me, I will say something, I will do something, I will make myself available.
Sandra? Jumped right at you.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I need no introduction exactly. This is starting to feel very familiar, but I'm very, very glad to be here. Of course, Joey, as well as your listening audience, that I've always spoken out on a number of issues that are extremely near and dear to my heart. None, I think, more important than trying to protect our children in this community and making sure that they can grow up in a happy and healthy social environment and happy and healthy homes and have the best opportunities when it comes to education so that they can have a future that, in my opinion, is definitely worth fighting for. So I'm very glad to be here in the studio this evening. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you all for being here. And I'm actually happy that Patrice made it clear that we're all Caymanians in here. Regardless of where our country of origin or our parents' countries of origin was, we're all Caymanians. Because the other thing is that all three of you are currently very active in this political campaign as well, helping out, giving advice, not going out there and in any way interfering, but supporting individuals that you want to see help lead the country forward. So this evening, one of the main reason why I invited the three of you rather than female candidates is because candidates have a tendency to skirt around the issues out of fear that they take the wrong position. Certainly I don't. I have no issue with that. But women's issues is important. It's extremely important. And there's a lot that we're going to talk about today. But the reason why I invited you on Tuesday as well is because it's 2 hours. And we can take our time and we can look at these issues and we can have some in-depth discussion. Now, here's my thing to all three of you. Please, this is not a show, even though you're ladies, and I respect that, where you're going to hold up your hand and ask permission. First of all, women shouldn't have to do that anymore. You need to stick to the table, right? Don't leave, pull up to the table and insist that you be heard. So you're going to have to start doing that on this show, certainly. And my question to you ladies is this. Okay, there are more female students obtaining and passing and graduating from high school and obtaining further education. There are less females in prisons than males. Don't you think you guys are already winning?
Unfortunately, no. If I can answer that. Despite, I don't want to sort of make this a war of the sexes or anything,
Agreed.
But I mean, at the end of the day, women bring a lot to the table, but we are still underrepresented in government. We're still underrepresented in the workplace. We're still underpaid. We're underrepresented and underpaid in leadership positions around the world. When you see a strong female woman out there, unfortunately, she's going to get labeled for speaking her mind. She'll get labeled as a troublemaker and all sorts of other things, both in and outside of the work environment. So I don't personally see that as winning. So I think that,
Yes.
Despite the fact that we have some advantages and we continue to improve, and we have, I think, proven ourselves. Sadly, we're still not in the driving seat, so to speak. So I think we have a long ways to go. And it's really sad.
Sandra off, if you have
Well, no, I tend to agree with Sandra in the sense that we're not winning. But let me look at it from a different perspective. In that women and the females in our schools that you just spoke to in terms of graduating, girls develop differently from guys, obviously, and they develop faster. And women generally are mature a lot quicker than men. Sorry to tell you that, Joey, but women tend to be more mature. So the girls in the schools, they have a focus. It takes the guys a little longer before they get to the point where they settle down, and before they start to look at their studies. And sometimes it's because their pockets are hurting, they don't have a job, so they then want to play catch up. But I definitely agree that in the workplace, women have to fight harder. In the society, women have to fight harder. And once the woman becomes an aggressive woman, then, and aggressive not in a negative sense,
right,
she's labeled as wanting to be, taking on a man's role.
Right. So go ahead.
I want to jump in. I'm trying to be a lady today, but I think that's going out of the door now.
Isn't it obvious that the lady thing hasn't worked in society?
No, we can still be ladies. We can still have cordial expressions amongst our women folk and even amongst the sexes.
Okay.
I will address the issue of women who are outspoken and called various names, one of which is related to a female dog. And I'm tired of hearing that. Yeah. I am so tired of hearing that word being used by women to another woman. Mm-hmm. I am tired and completely fed up of hearing men referring to women with that same word. And I'm tired of hearing lyrics, seeing movies. I'm simply tired of it. And we talk about seeing it in context, like if it's in an artistic way, then perhaps no. Any instance in which we are degrading, denigrating, or completely demeaning any person with a word that's not intended for them, we are causing damage. We're causing damage to their psyche. We're causing damage to the people around them who then think it's okay to do it. So all we're doing is perpetuating the cycle. I am tired of people who show leadership skills be treated differently based on which sexual organ they have. Yeah. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I was raised by a single mother. And people probably called her aggressive and assertive, but I couldn't care. I'm now at the point in which she was at when she was giving birth to me, She was roughly my age when she gave birth to me, and she didn't care. It's just it's frustrating to see how these stereotypes are perpetuated and driven and just completely just taken over in the way that we treat our kids, in the way that we expect kids to be responsible for the household and learn household chores. We need to stop it.
And if I could, too, Joey, sorry, Patrice also raised another point in that not only do men denigrate and demean women, but sometimes we women do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation recently with a group of people at my home. We were talking about, are women our worst enemies?
Yes.
Are we sometimes the ones who cause us to be treated the way we're treated? And, you know, sometimes we as women, we don't stand up for each other. We don't support one another. We compete with one another, and there's nothing wrong with competition. But the fact is that competition doesn't have to be nasty. If I can help you up, and if I can hold your hand, and I can help you as another woman to succeed, what's wrong with that?
That's right.
But instead, a lot of us tend to want to beat up on each other. We put each other down. So sometimes we women are our worst enemies.
Yeah, and this is a nice lead-in, because you and I also had a conversation in respect to my post and wanting to see more women in Parliament. In fact, I said 50-50 by gender. And I think you may have had a discussion with some others who said, not really, we don't want that many. And that,
exactly.
You know, women were uncomfortable with working with more women.
Yeah.
And
and that is a sad state of affairs, because like the question was, should the Parliament be split 50-50 men and women? And I had women posting on my site saying, no, if you have too many women in there, you're going to have these issues, you're going to have that, and so on. And men, sometimes I think men are just afraid of us women, because women, especially if you have an outspoken
I think that's weak men, though. You know, I actually...
I would agree.
Well, weak men...
Let me explain what I mean. I have never, ever had a conversation with my wife in the 27, 28 years we've been married to, you can't do certain things. Right? I don't do that. I've never done that. That thought has never entered my mind. But at the same time, I was raised by 3 women, right? So my mother and my 2 older sisters. My youngest sister is 10 years older than me. So I was the babe in the family raised by these 3 women. And
who spoiled you rotten, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, but they also forced me to have more respect for women. Right? So when I was a teenager and womanizing, I got chastised many times, right? And was forced to treat the girls I was dating with respect.
Right, with respect.
So even when I got married, you know, I don't tell my wife who to vote for. No, we don't. That's your choice.
Right.
That's your democratic right. Here's the information. You can read it, and make your choice. So things like that, and who's going to cook? I'll cook. You know, I don't mind cooking on Sundays. In fact, I prefer to cook on Sundays when all the children are there. So that's what I mean by weaker men. I think men need to understand.
And I agree.
If I could just make a commentary about that, Joey. I think part of the problem, and Juliet sort of touched on this earlier, is I think she was a bit sympathetic towards some of the men in our community and some of our boys. And I think this is something that, as Caribbean women, we have been guilty of in the past, is that we allow a different standard, and we set a very different standard for our male children in all aspects of their lives. So there are certain things that we simply don't expect of them, even in terms of being, in the home. It's very, very unusual to hear of a male child being raised equal in terms of household duties and what's expected of him. Even homework and social activities, they tend to really get a pass on a lot of different things, whereas the female child wouldn't. And I think in some other cultures that has really been done away with to a large extent, but in the Caribbean culture, and in particular here in Cayman, we tend to baby our male children quite a bit. And unfortunately, we also raise them around other men who are womanizers and who are out there with a wife plus 2, 3, 4 girlfriends if they can handle it. And, you know, our young men are seeing that as an example, and they aspire to that sort of activity instead of aspiring to being, you know,
faithful.
Academically sorry, what was that?
No, I'm just saying it's better to be faithful.
I mean, instead of them aspiring to, you know, being academically high achievers and that sort of thing, we don't really have that standard for them. So I think that at some level we need to start. And I want to say, I don't really want to blame the women in the family, but we tend to be responsible for the child rearing. Yeah. So we have to take a large part of that responsibility. But I think we all need to sort of collectively understand the impact that we're having on our children.
Yeah, and we have to go to a break. But before we go to the commercial break, I just want to leave this for you guys to think about. One of the things that irks me, if I can use that word without... is maternity leave. And it irks me because I can't see how we can build a strong nation and separate a mother from her baby so early to get her back to work. And I don't know how we can expect great things from children and great things from people when we refuse to deal with that and show some humanity in that respect. The other thing, as part of that, is the women in Cayman that sit all day by their desks eating chips and cheese and drinking coffee because they want to save their lunch hour to pick their child up. That's inhumane from my standpoint, and it's something that bothers me, and it's something that I made sure did not exist in any organization that I was in charge of. And it's easy to fix. So when we come back, I'd like you ladies to pick up on that, if you would. But we're going to go right now to a commercial break. Keep it locked right here to the Joey Ebanks Radio Show on Vibe 98.9.
I'm not afraid to take a stand.
Is off the table. It's the Joey Ebanks Show on Vibe FM.
Hi, welcome back to the Joey Ebanks Radio Show. We're here with the three ladies. We're talking about women's issues, and at the break, I asked you guys to give some thought to the amount of time, the limited time that women on maternity leave are allowed, and the issue with having to work all day, survive on coffee and crackers to pick their kids up. Obviously, because they want to make sure that not only are they picked up, but they want to see them before they go home for homework. And that's just love, that's just the way it is. So, your comment, Patrice, we'll start off with you because you don't want to jump in and fight today.
No, I'm letting the conversation flow. I don't want to just interrupt for the sake of interrupting. I do that very well, but not today. I'd like to just say that for the women who are sitting at their desks eating whatever snacks and things that they can find just to sustain themselves, they are parents that are after my own heart. Yes. I don't have any children myself. All right, but I've looked after my nieces, and I've had godchildren and looked after them as well too. What I say to you is that our employment rules need to recognize several things, and I'm not an employment lawyer or a sociologist. All right, we need to recognize that fathers could be more responsible for collecting the children as well too. Alternate. Have the mom on flex time and have her come in early so she can leave early.
That's right. And
not have to then worry about coming back to work.
Yeah.
Okay? Have the father be responsible for dropping the kid off and the mom pick them up. It has to be a tag team with the employer making it possible for the mom or the father, because there are fathers who do that too and who will need that.
And that's what an organization structure does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about an executive team, managers, supervisors. So we're talking about managing people and making sure that the resources are there. So cross-training, for example, should never end. It's constantly going on. And if one of the female workers who's on the front line and a bank teller is off on maternity, someone should fill in. And then what's so bad about giving her for the next 12 months some work from an administrative point that can be done at home so that she can spend some time and still earn a living? I mean, this is simple human gestures that doesn't hurt the organization. You don't need to be in a building to work, to perform in the morning.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people still have that misconception because a lot of managers find it necessary to micromanage their staff. So that's a whole different issue, which I don't know that we'll have time for this evening. But I just wanted to touch on something that Patrice said that I find is very, very interesting in my own observations, is that individuals who tend to be, women in particular, who tend to be professionals and are aspiring to certain goals in their professional lives, you tend to now find they're putting off having children, sometimes to their own detriment, to where they reach their late 30s and early 40s, and then they're ready and they want to have children. They feel like financially they have certain things in place where they can accommodate that, and then the biological clock is not so willing anymore. But I think part of that has been really because of the same situation that we're talking about, where they wish to be a little bit further along in their careers, where they have some options, to be able to spend more time with their children and do other things. And
but Joey, let me just say, you're talking about women at work who sit and eat because they want to pick the kids up. What I find with some employers is that they look at the labor law and they says, well, this is the bare minimum that the law requires me to give you, and that's all that I give you.
Right. But Julia, on that, if that's what they're going to look at, then let's change that.
That's the
Right?
point. That's the point. So we women have to make a stand. We have to be able to say to those people who make these regulations, look, you have to look at the family, you have to look at the children, you have to look at what we're doing and creating for society. So while some employers are very good and they may say, well, okay, these are the people who work for me. Even though the law says this is a bare minimum, I can do better than this. But some employers give you the bare minimum, and that bare minimum might be 30 minutes for lunch, half an hour for lunch, 45 minutes for lunch, and so on. But they're not going to extend themselves. So that has to change.
And I fully support Patrice's position that fathers can pick up some days
Absolutely.
too, and we can share it. But when I speak of that, I'm speaking of that single parent. We have so many single parents. I was raised by a single parent too, so I kind of, and even though my household is a two-parent household, I still remember what my mother had to do, right? And the fact, and what she had to do to raise me and my three siblings, all by herself. It wasn't easy. But so organizations, we are talking about people here. We're talking about people who already exist. We're not talking about a teenage pregnancy prevention program. We're talking about people who exist. These are human beings that are here and now. And how do we now advance them to ensure that they have what they need? And I don't believe it's possible by having that short maternity leave there and preventing that for the bonding and development of that child with that mother. And organizations need to just accept, look, I did some research, and I'm sure you guys did some research on this, is the one country that I found was not very liberal with this was America, because of the capitalist society that it is. But just about every other one gets it and says, no, money doesn't mean that much anymore. What's important is tomorrow and the future of our country and who we're developing and how we're developing it. Yeah?
And France was one of the first places that actually introduced paternity leave. So you have not only the mother having time off, but you have the father bonding with the child, and you have the father being at home to support the child. So you have to look at those things as well, because you need that family, you need that unit, that bonding with that child. That's very, very important.
And the grandparents too, because here in Cayman we have grandparents who are no longer working, and they fit perfectly as a nanny who should be paid. We're also bringing in nannies from overseas when we have grandparents there who would happily spend the day looking after their grandchild, bonding with that family unit on extended maternity leave. And then you have a built-in nanny who you can pay and gets a little extra cash, and the funds stay within your family unit.
Yeah, exactly. And we've lost that structure, that family structure, that extended family that had, 2 or 3 generations either within the same house or within the same yard, living in different houses. We've lost that because we're so busy trying to get our own little spot on 7 Mile Beach, or we're trying to get our little condo or wherever. You know what? Get with it. Get with it.
And you know what we lose with that, Patrice? We lose the thing that I think is really near and dear to your heart. We lose the storytelling. Right? So your grandparents are no longer there to tell those stories, to carry that history on. This stuff is not written down, is it, Sandra?
Well, having said that, I'm going to take a slightly different take on this whole grandparent, raising grandchildren thing, because there's been a very interesting phenomena in the U.S. where a lot of grandparents are having to raise by no choice of their own, really, because of either children being incarcerated or dying prematurely. They're having to raise their grandchildren. And in fact, the research has shown that socially, that's really not the ideal position to be in. So I, on the one hand, support grandparents being active as much as they want in the lives of their grandchildren, but I would not go as far as saying that we should be considering employing them to sort of work as a nanny.
Not necessarily employ it, but making sure that they're an integral part of your children's lives.
Absolutely.
But when I say that, I want that option there, Sandra, because we also have single parents who are real on minimum wage, right? And they're making $1,500, $2,000. When we add the importation of a nanny, that carries with it another expense and have responsibility
that's beyond their actual disposable income.
And you know what else? Then they have to underpay them, which causes us to import poverty. So when that grandmother could use a little extra cash, right? So what I'm encouraging them to do is get away from the thought that you're not successful if you don't have a imported nanny, because that's not so. Look, I've seen rich people in this country buy cars from, right? Really nice cars for their nanny to drive up and down. So we don't need that. That's something that they can afford. You don't need to get that in your head that that's success. It's not. Success is raising that child to be a powerful advocate, human, change the world, right?
Independent thinker.
Let me ask you a question, though. How did we get here? Is it the fact that now women have to leave home and go to work?
Yes.
Because remember, in the good old days,
yes, the seamen were out.
The grandparents were around. You
Yeah.
were home with your children.
Yeah.
Now women
Yeah.
have to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't eat. We don't
Yeah.
pay the bills. Everything is expensive. Cost of living is high.
Yes.
So how do you get back to that family unit where the mother and the grandparents and everybody's at home? Even the grandparents are working.
We do so through policy change on extended maternity leave to begin with. If that mother has that comfort, and we're going to get to the other one, key one, I think, to get back there. But first, the extended maternity leave, and ensuring that that mother is comfortable, no stress about her job. She's able to still stay connected to her position and upward mobility by working from home and partial days or whatever, in and out, and she's able to go. But there is one other key thing that we must address. Women must be paid equal to men based on knowledge and qualification and experiences, right?
You can say that again.
With
It doesn't
that
happen.
component missing, we'll never get there.
It doesn't
And
happen.
if I can also say from the grandparents' perspective, obviously I'm not a grandparent, but I think
I am.
as the socialization changes, and you'll find that the previous 40 is now the new 30, and the previous 50 is now the new 40, and so on and so forth. You have people like like Juliet, who's
still only
a little
20.
bit older, but she's still feeling like she's 25, who will want to continue to work in an organization outside of the home. And so, she wants to keep her brain young. She wants to keep her body young. She has a very full life of her own.
Yeah.
So again, I think, even there's some room here for discussion about what it is that the older woman wishes to have, even if, she's a grandparent.
Great point,
She may
great
not,
point.
she may not care to be
The
as
nanny.
involved in the lives of her grandchildren
I
as
got
you
it.
may think, because
Yeah.
she's busy, still living a very full life.
And
women are living
Yeah.
well into their 80s and 90s, and they're perfectly happy and healthy. And there was a recent incident, actually, Joey, with
just before you go on, Sandra, that point you just made is one of the reasons why you can't leave these kind of policies to men only, because I never thought of that, right? That thought didn't enter my mind. I was thinking about something completely different.
Right.
This is why we have to get this right.
Of course,
You
and
know?
I'm glad she raised that point, because I remember
Yeah.
I moved from Cayman to Turks and Caicos. When I came back to Cayman and I'm looking for a job, nobody wants to hire a 50-year-old woman.
Right.
But I am, as you said, 50 is the new 40.
Yeah.
In fact, for me, 50 is the new 30. I don't
Yeah.
know, But
Yeah.
my point is that your brain is still young. You're not at
Yeah.
retirement age. You're still
healthy.
you have experience. You
Yes.
have qualifications. You can add a lot to a work environment. But because people are looking for the young persons coming out of school who have
Whom they can pay less.
Yeah.
who they can pay less, and who can't function in the workplace.
Yeah.
As an older
Yeah.
person, you start to feel, you're putting me out to pasture already, and I'm ready.
Yeah.
I have another 20, 30, 40 years left.
And that's an organization and policy mistake, because I believe that retirement should be voluntary, based upon a person's ability and health. Because I also have a brother-in-law who is strong, but he's in his 60s and near retirement. This guy can easily outwork anyone I know. Okay? Easily. Any young person he can outwork. In a day of the week, rain or sunshine. So why take that great human capital that you have with all this experience and knowledge and send them home and hire someone that you're going to spend so much money to develop? Why not leave him there, bring the kid in, let him
They
just
train.
switch roles and
Absolutely.
start to develop people for
Exactly.
it very quickly,
Absolutely.
right? And you still have his expertise in house
Absolutely.
as well.
We're unfortunately, we're not a country that encourages mentorship, true
Yes, that's true.
mentorship,
That's true.
and apprenticeship, and
Yeah.
developing journeymen.
Yeah.
We're beginning to see small strides in that in terms of in some of the trades, but
Yeah.
we're not doing enough of it.
You know where it's very powerful? It's powerful amongst the rich and powerful, right? The people at the 1%, they do this with their kids. They swap kids to do mentoring programs and develop them. And we're wondering why they're successful. Here's one of the keys to their success. They're spending time developing their kids from a young age. They're mentoring them. They're getting their partners and friends to help mentor them and develop them. And here, that's how it works. So
They have a totally different cultural
Yes,
mindset than
yes,
we do.
They think and live success.
Yeah, exactly.
We pause,
Yeah.
And we're 2 minutes away from a break, but I really want us to discuss, and I want to start taking calls at 6 o'clock so the callers can start calling in with their position on this. But I really want, before we go to the calls, to discuss the inequity in wages and income between genders. This is something that has been debated globally for the last 100 years, and not one single politician has taken this on and fixed it. And you know what?
Most of the politicians have been men.
Right. It's not a difficult thing to do. We're talking about experience and qualifications and ability, right? That's what you pay on. You pay based on that. But if we look at what's been happening globally in Cayman and everywhere else, it's not. You're actually adding a fourth variable, which is gender.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, Joey, there's so many issues that impact, women.
Sorry, I want to go to the break.
Okay.
But when you come, I want you to lead off on that and your views on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to go to a break. We have to take these breaks and keep it locked to the Joey Ebanks Radio Show right here on Vibe 98.9.
Nothing is off the table. It's the Joey Ebanks Show.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here on the Joey Ebanks Radio Show on Vibe 98.9 FM. And we're talking about women's issues. So, Sandra, we were talking about the inequality of wages as a result of gender in the workplace. You want to lead off on that for us?
Well, actually, what I wanted to actually touch on was the aspect of that in terms of why the legislation hasn't been passed and why the necessary changes haven't been passed. And just to make a more general comment, Joey, and that there's so many things that need to happen from a legislative perspective in this country that simply haven't happened because we have that inequality in the Legislative Assembly. And unfortunately, when you bring these issues to the forefront, men will tell you, and these are politicians, will tell you that, oh, well, that's not the most important thing right now. And they do not see the importance of gender equality, pay equality, protecting your children by having a sex offenders registry, and all of these other things that we've been fighting so long for. So I think until we, do get women in there, and there's sort of an interesting thing I was listening to yesterday on National Public Radio, which is one of the stations I listen to quite frequently. There's a book called Top Dog, and it analyzes why some people are winners and some people are not, and it looked at the sexes. And one of the interesting things about women tend not to get involved in politics. And the psychology behind that is a woman will, and of course this is the majority of women, it certainly wouldn't apply to all women, but the majority of women will only get involved in politics if they strongly believe that they can win. So women do things to win, as opposed to the challenge of it.
But there's another option here that I wonder why all women don't exercise. It doesn't matter who gets elected. The guy goes home and there's pillow talk. Why aren't the women lobbying the wives of politicians and pushing policy?
Because that doesn't work. I mean, first of all, let's be honest. They haven't pillow talk with so many other people that they've probably forgotten.
That is so
they have probably forgotten it by the time they get back to the LA.
That's at the ankles, man.
They can't keep it straight or in their pants.
So we don't want to go there about pillow talk.
That sounds like a cop-out.
This isn't a discussion that we should have as pillow talk anyway. These are real issues.
What I mean by that is...
sorry, Joey. I agree with you in the sense that, yes, women can be lobbying each other as the wives of these politicians and so on. Because sometimes that's where the greatest ideas come from. When they're having these conversations and they go home and they say to their husbands, I was having this conversation and this is something that I think you need to consider. And if a guy...
Pillow talk was a bad choice of description.
Well, no, but that's fine. But if a guy is genuinely interested in not only the male section of the community, but the community at large, he will take those things on board and he will consider what conversations he have with his wife and her friends.
But the reality is, let's be honest here.
I just want to elaborate on this a bit in that, don't you guys... This happens to me where my wife says, "Hey, you need to stop. We need to talk about something." I mean, don't you guys do that with your husband's significant other?
Listen, Joey.
Here is when now.
But
what I'm saying is, here's the opportunity where that wife says, because of the discussion she's had with her female friends, we have issues in this country that we need you to all to start taking a look at.
If you look at a lot of our male politicians, they're autocratic. They don't want a woman. That is why we have the issues.
So where you guys want
That's
from?
why we have the issue with the difference between Well, the inequality, because
Yes.
men here generally are autocratic, especially when they have a position of importance,
And
as
power,
in
yeah.
quote unquote.
But then it goes back to how they're socialized.
when they have that position of power, they don't want anybody to tell them anything because they know it all. So we have the issue where women have either got to get together and we have to lobby as women, as a group of women together collectively.
Yes.
If we can't get to those politicians one on one.
And that's what I'm suggesting.
So we-
themselves.
I agree with
we
you.
have to
I
we have to
agree with you.
move past our egos as women.
Yeah.
I've been quiet when it comes to issues about how women don't support each other because I'm perhaps a little too passionate on that idea, and I really don't want to overtake the show today. No, I don't because I could. However,
Do it.
I have in growing up, and as I remember as a 9-year-old being accused of being that type of girl because most of my friends were male.
Right.
And that's what it comes back to, that whole socialization in the playground, at school. We are denigrating each other as little girls.
Yeah.
We're then teaching each other that we don't need to support each other. We're just going to tear you down because
That's
it's going
right.
to make me feel better.
That's true.
All right, it's going to put you out of the way so that I can get the guy that you're friends with.
Yes.
And it's that ego, that lack of self-esteem, that lack of self-awareness,
Yeah.
that improper socialization that we've got to address.
But now you're adults. You need to form your group. You need to lobby. You need to have tea if you're going to have
Absolutely.
tea. And you need to be
Totally
as
agree,
women.
Joey.
Well,
You need to
totally
say,
back.
here are the issues that affect us. You, Sandra, your husband is Minister Catron, and we want a meeting at some point for 20 minutes. And we want to discuss this, and we want him to challenge this
But
cause.
Joey-
we need more Michelle Obamas.
Yes, you do.
We need more Michelle Obamas
do.
and Laura Bush
Yeah.
and all of those very strong
Because
women.
Let's face it.
But this goes back to your original point about the fact that you sort of thought that perhaps as women we have come so long, we have so far, and we have so many advantages.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is we don't.
You do.
I think the mere fact that we still have to go through my friend to get to her husband to discuss political issues in this country is a problem. That's problematic.
That is
And
not.
that's
Well,
why
well,
we-
well,
you
well,
know,
well,
the lobbying.
well, no, I wasn't saying that that's what you have to do.
No.
I'm saying that that's an option. But let me say this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you a secret about male politicians. Male politicians in this country are scared of the women voter. Want me to tell you why? More women show up to vote than men.
Absolutely.
Okay? They do. That's a statistical fact. So male politicians are afraid.
Well, they can't be that
what-
afraid.
They
'cause
are.
they're
What hasn't been
implementing some
happening
changes.
is that no, but they haven't been challenged, right? When they're elected is when you need to lobby them and remind them of that statistical difference that shows up on election day and what your expectations are.
And I
hold them to
totally
it.
agree with that. And the lobbying does work. The lobbying does work. And women, like we said, we women have to take the stand. And I mean, today, Joey, the show, we've had these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you that after today, you're going to find that women are going to lobby a whole lot more and a lot differently.
Yes, I hope
Yeah.
so.
I mean-
they're still supposed to do that, right? See, we're not ducking the
Interesting-
issue.
Yeah, no, and interestingly enough as well, even when you look at politicians, the general male politician, you'll find a lot of their political analysts and their right hand
Are
man
men.
tends to be a man
Yeah.
and not a woman. And I think again that's a serious indictment on us as a community.
Yeah. Patrice, you want to jump in and say something?
No.
Okay,
No, but if you look at the gender equality bill that came out in 2011, I was looking at that earlier today, where they were talking about the prohibition and discrimination in employment. They're talking about when you advertise a certain post, you can't say whether the post is for a man or a woman, but then there are exceptions to that. And I thought that was very interesting because it looked at if you're advertising a particular job and that job requires that it should be a man, there are certain exceptions. And I'm saying, well, who determines that
What
a
those
man
exceptions
alone
are,
can
yeah.
do that job? They are female engineers.
That's right.
So who determines that job is
Bricklayers.
for men
Pilots.
only?
We just
firewomen.
We just celebrated on Facebook a young lady from Cayman who's
That's
now
right.
with a pilot.
Absolutely.
And still is not hired by Cayman Airways. I mean, come on. Why is that happening? All right, I just got a little political, but
No, listen.
isn't it great to have a female qualified pilot? I would think
Absolutely.
If I was in charge of Cayman Airways, I would hire her right away.
Snap her
right?
right
Because-
And
away.
she's not the only one, Joey. If history is a
that's
very
true.
funny thing.
It
You know,
took
we
a
need
while
to remember
before
in
they have a
history.
fire-
I have
female
a half sister by the name of Vita Rocket, who was Cayman's first
First.
female commercial
Yes,
pilot.
yes.
And where does Vita Rocket work today?
Tell
She
me.
works in a law firm
Law
where
firm,
she has worked for many, many years. Why? Because when she was trying to fly with a
Yeah.
male-dominated
Yeah.
piloting profession, they did things to her that were
Yeah.
unconscionable
Yes,
in
they
terms
did.
of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And nobody stepped in at the organizational
Yeah.
level and did anything about
Agreed.
it. And as a result, she left.
Yeah.
So
But we
that,
have to
that was
break those
probably 20
barriers
years
down,
ago.
you know?
Has that
Yeah.
changed?
We have to break those barriers down. Well, some of those same people that did that to her are still there, right? And in fact,
And they're
I
not
think
being
they've
held
gotten
to.
promoted.
They're not being held to account anyway.
No, they're not, and they need to be. We have to break those barriers down. Those are the social issues that the community needs to frown on, you know, and say, hey, no way we're going to put up with that.
But
And-
before they frown on it, they have to be aware of it.
yes, agreed.
They have to be aware that it's
Agreed.
wrong. They have to be aware.
But-
They have to actually listen to that little, still, small voice, that prickling in the back of their
Yeah.
head that says, you know what, this doesn't feel right, and say something about it,
Yeah.
regardless of who gets mad at them or gets upset.
And you know, one of the key things that, again, there are little pieces of policy infrastructure that has to be in place to prevent this kind of thing from occurring. Like it may happen to a female who doesn't have the money to pursue it through legal, and pro bono has to be a place. We have to change that to make it accessible, so that we don't know who it's going to happen to. You know, it may be someone wealthy who can afford the legal fees, maybe someone who can't, right, and who can't take that risk. And that pro bono needs to be in place, where it's mandatory for lawyers to have to provide so many hours and stuff of work that allows that access to that to prevent that kind of sexual harassment.
This is where networking and mentoring
Absolutely.
comes in
Yeah.
very key. All right,
And there
People
has to be a
yeah.
willingness on the part of the professionals, in this instance, the attorneys as well, because you'll find that a lot of attorneys, we have sort of grown up in a system where pro bono work isn't something that is done under the English legal system.
Yeah.
It's more of an American concept. So us now trying to adopt that just conceptually
Yes.
is very, very difficult
Yeah.
for some individuals. But I completely support it. And as someone who myself has a law degree, if I could tell you the number of people that
Right.
come to me seeking some sort of advice, sometimes legal, sometimes not,
Right.
but it's just absolutely astounding. So definitely there is
Yeah,
a
you must-
market there for it.
You must
Yes,
get bombarded with that, Sandra. I mean,
And-
because
and-
you're
and-
also politically active. You've been a candidate. You have the law degree. So I would
Yeah,
imagine.
I mean, honestly, there's not a week that someone doesn't call me about a divorce issue, an employment issue, a family issue, social services related, something. And, most of it, there's always some legal component
Yeah.
to it. But people just need help.
I want to
And
throw in a
Sorry.
little monkey wrench when Juliet is finished. Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say that, and the thing about it is that those people who need the help, sometimes they're disadvantaged because they don't have it. They might be entitled to something or benefit or
Right.
something. They don't get it because they don't have that legal assistance.
Right.
So I think the need definitely exists.
And there's that knowledge that they're entitled to it, So we need more education, public announcement and education saying, hey,
Yep.
if this happens to you, it's wrong.
Even
you need
this
to be
issue with the police and searching people with problematic search warrants.
Yes.
Right now, I'm in the middle of suing the RCAPS, and trust me, I'm at the end where I'm about to win.
Right.
And it's the same thing where they utilize search warrants that are completely invalid,
Yeah.
and they have been doing this forever
Yeah.
because I can look at a search warrant
Nobody's
and tell
challenged
you
them.
No one
that
has, no.
there are mistakes on there that date back to court cases where 30 years ago the court said you cannot do this.
That's
and
right.
in 30 years, it has never been corrected.
Yeah.
And when I tell you it's a simple form and a simple correction,
Yeah.
that's what it is. But we only hear of the occasional person like Judge Henderson,
Yes.
who has the audacity and the legal knowledge
Yeah.
and the resources to sue the RCAPS.
That's right.
And
you
it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't, because what that means is that justice is only available for some.
some.
And
Exactly.
that's wrong. It's wrong. I mean, justice must not just be done, It must appear to be done. Because if it doesn't appear to be done, you cause chaos within a society. That's when young men become
when you get
riotous.
anarchy.
Anarchy, yeah, you destroy
And that's
it.
exactly what we're experiencing.
Yes.
The lighter side of it, but it's only going to get worse. I want to throw a little monkey wrench in here, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And it's the dynamic between older women and younger women who are in a supervisory position. And that dynamic here needs to change. It is not a healthy one. It is not one that's supportive. And it causes a great deal of tension for young professionals to then simply say, you know what, I can't fight this, I won't fight this, I will walk away rather than fight somebody who reminds me of my mother. How can you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? So I'd love a caller to address that.
Yeah, and one of the things...
I'd like to say that because it comes back to the point that I raised earlier. Sometimes we women are our worst enemies.
Yeah.
But I will share with you that I have a young lady that I supervise. And when I started to work with this young lady, you hear all the things about a person, a young person, they're indisciplined and so on. This young lady is absolutely fantastic. And for me, as the older person and her supervisor, what I'm trying to do with her is to say to her, you have so much potential. You deserve more.
Yeah.
And mentoring her and trying to get her to a point where she sees her own ability, her own value. If we could get that in the workplace, we women need to stop being our worst enemies.
Let me tell you,
we need to be there for the
I got
a
chance to see this work, precisely what you're saying, at Royal Bank of Canada with their more senior staff people like Cora Grant and Denise and Judah Lawrence and them. When the new young high school females came through, the effort that they extended to try and help develop them. People that were there like Carol Scott and those that were in there. They all Caymanian women. They were from one generation. And they had a system of sort of an invitational system of here's how we're going to get you through the tough days. Because you're going to have tough days. You're going to have babies. These are issues that are going to happen. You're going to get into a fight with your significant other, right? All of these things are going to happen, but we have this built-in system within Royal Bank of Canada here that we're going to move you through this and help you out. And I just stood by and watched from a distance, right? But the thing was, it was such a beautiful thing to watch because
and that's a very good example for
I bet it was.
No, that's a very good example because I had someone share with me, they worked at Royal Bank years ago, and they were saying to me that a supervisor walked in, she was in a really foul mood, but she wasn't necessarily talking to anybody. Her supervisor immediately became aware of it by the expression and her whole body language. And they had a system in place where they would pull her and they would say, you need to talk to somebody. You're not going to push, but if you don't share, we're going to, we're going to give you some counseling, whatever the issue is, whether it's personal, work related, whatever. And that's where I'm saying that some organizations don't go beyond what the labor law says we have to do. So once you care about the whole person, you
that's
get a lot more out of your employer.
Wellness. It has to include
Not just a catchword.
No, that's right. The days of just hiring people and putting them in a job and paying them a salary and make sure the benefits are there and never saying hello to them again are over. And any leader and any manager who thinks like that, hey, you don't belong in the system anymore.
Your human resource, your human capital is the most
valuable. Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna go to a break, but remember the number is 946-9898, 946-9898. Give us a call and let us know what you want to talk about and what affects you as women, what questions you have for my panel. But when we come back as well, we're going to lead off, Sandra. I think you need to lead off with this issue of...
which one? Sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment. Because this thing has been lingering around too long as well. And anytime... Look, this is silly that a man can't look at a woman without doing that, man. And Caribbean men do not go around patting men on the backside. So if you're working with someone, if you're going around patting men on the backside, that's an excuse to pat women on the backside because you're doing it to everybody. But if you don't do it to your co-worker who's male, why are you doing it to the female? Okay, so it's not... So when we get back, Sandra, we're going to lead off with the sexual harassment in the workplace, and we're going to have to tackle this as well, and we're going to have to change the way we look at this, and women don't have to put up with it. So let's take a call first. Let's go to the phone lines. I like to give the customer the preference, Hello, caller, you're on there.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am, and thank you for your call.
Hi. My name is Velma Power Hewitt.
Hi there.
Hi there. Hello.
Hi, Velma.
Hi, Joey, old partner. I am really, really happy to listen this afternoon and to hear the discussion of three women whom I respect. Sandra and Juliet being the elder of the three, but little Patrice, who I know from a weeny little girl.
I'm turning 40. I'm not so young anymore.
Hold on a second.
Everyone's seeing the signals going on here.
Trying to make you feel
And I will have you know that Patrice and I are probably the same age. She might be a little bit older. I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm a spring chicken here, girl.
That place where all experience men know they must never travel.
I'm 40 US and 32 CI. It's all right.
Okay, all right.
I love that one, girlfriend. But I just want to say to you women, I am really heartened that you would take on and discuss openly some of the very issues that are near and dear to my heart. I have long been an advocate of us women. I have always been one who feels that if each one takes one, in the sense of you talking about mentoring, I hope that in the years of my work that I have left a legacy as one who did precisely that. Not only in the way of how the organization expected you to carry out the work, but also to take the time to help groom, to help the woman feel whole. One of our greatest assets is unity. United, together we stand. Absolutely. But divided we fall. I beg, I implore women to grasp the concept that each of us have something to bring to the table. Each of us have an opportunity to leave this world a tad bit better than we came here and found it. And so when I hear you address the issues of inequality in pay, when I hear you address the issues of the lack of proper maternity leave, when I hear you talk about the issues of inequality in how we have to work so hard to reach that glass ceiling, and then the very one that pulls us back is a woman, not only is disturbing in a sense, but it also speaks of the egotistical part that Patrice spoke of earlier, and which you two other ladies agreed on. I am a firm believer, and I won't keep the line open very long because I do have an evening to get ready for. But I just want you women to know that I really, truly do honor your input. I value you as women. I look forward, if I am successful as a candidate, to meeting with the women of the community, the different levels, the different districts. But even so, I am a firm believer that even if I am not successful, I still have a duty. I'm still morally
responsible,
obliged and responsible to bring forward whatever I can to make this home, this world, a better place. And so I just wanted to say to you women, I truly am appreciative. I heard you when you also talked about the pro bono. I think Juliet may have a little nip of what that was about the other day, as well as Joey. And I want to just bring that to the fore, that came about through women pulling for women. Not to say that men can't access the pro bono aspect of advice, but the setup as it is now is through the Business and Professional Women's Club. And I also wish not to degrade or to demean that organization, for it does much good work for women in the community. I just think that, I just think that what happens needs to happen in relation to men being able to access it, is that perhaps Joey, who is a very strong, outspoken man, needs to also do the same in relation to how the women of the club were able to successfully get that service provided for.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Velma. We really appreciate your comments. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone here that we wish you all the best as a, just a fellow woman with the upcoming election. We would extend that to all of the women who are running, because I think it starts with greater representation in the LA, and we can certainly start there. So thank you very much, and good luck at your meeting this evening.
Thank you.
And we will hold you to that, because you said it on air.
And I think if you check my daughters, God rest Mel, but I think if you talk to my daughters or you talk to any of the other women of whom I'm really close with, they will tell you. If Velma says she will, she will. I'm a woman of my word. I'm a woman of my word. I look forward to having further discussions, like I said, either way.
Okay.
Either way.
All right, Ms. Velma, thank you so much. We do have to take a quick break now.
Thank you.
Okay, honey, thank you. We are scheduled for a quick break, so have a wonderful evening. And let's go ahead and take that break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back from the break. Remember, the number is 946-9898. That's 946-9898. And you can also hit us up on Facebook with a question. All of my guests are tuned in and logged into their Facebook, so you can do that as well. We're talking about women's issues. I have in the studio with me 3 Caribbean women, 3 Caymanian women, Sandra, Juliet, and Patrice. And we're talking about a range of stuff with respect to the women's issues. And one thing that just came up that was actually given to us by Flavor, the technician in the studio with me, is teenage pregnancy. Girls who become pregnant and in high school, should they be allowed to go back to school? And this is something that's going to happen, right? The stories I've been told about my grandfather, my great-grandfather actually, was that he had 19 children. So this is nothing new.
Wow,
today,
Joey.
Right? And that this guy used to dig tunnels in the sand to get into people's house to get out their daughters. So this is my great-grandfather. All right, but we have a call on the line. I always love to treat customers for. Oh, they're gone. Caller, please call back. We'll take your call. I do apologize for that. I do prefer to give a call.
What's that number again, Joey?
946-9898. And you can give us a call. And I see how I have experience in the room as well as a guest. But so should they? What?
Absolutely.
How? Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Absolutely too.
Yeah. Because
okay, we have a caller. Sorry, we're going straight to the phone now. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your call.
Yes, I think it's a very important topic, far away from politics a little bit. And I think woman is very important part of the society. And I moved to Cayman some years ago, and I look at this, the situation of women in Cayman. It's improving. Woman is getting to be more educated. She getting more scholarships. She have become premier. She become member of the house. She become the speaker of the house. So it's improving. But in the other side, there is a lot of issues I think we need to look at, which is one of the issue that there's a lot of single mothers in Cayman. And result of the bad treatment of those men who understand that woman is like a part of like a piece of furniture or something in the house. They just married that woman just to say, oh, I am married or I am whatever. But I think we need to start look at women as equal to men in terms of rights, in terms of equal opportunities in jobs, equal opportunities in education.
I want to engage a little bit, caller. The question was, should girls who in high school become pregnant, should they be allowed back in school? What's your opinion on that?
First, I think parents is responsible about educated those girls. You know, I give you example, Mr. Joe. You know me, I am outspoken person, and I don't worry to say whatever I want to say. I'm not worried. I used to go sometimes by the old cinema, where is that Marquis complex, and in the night I see some mothers. They come bring some little girls, throw them in the cinema and gone and leave them, and some of those girls
go through the front and out the exit, right?
Right.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
And then another car picked them from there. Yeah. And this is happening with this new cinema by
Kimana
Bay. The same thing. Those mothers is, in my opinion, they are the one who to be charged. If there is a law to charge them, the mothers and the fathers too, both. I'm not saying woman only.
But I want to give you the scenario. The scenario is, it happens, and the child, the young lady is in high school, and it happens anyhow. Should she be allowed back into school, and how should we address that with her being a new mother?
I think it's if the mistake happened and done, the damage already done, but we don't need to create another bigger damage. What the bigger damage is, we don't educate that woman and give her opportunity to educate herself and make something in life. That's another bigger crime.
That's right.
That's
the bigger tragedy.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, caller. Thank you for your call.
Yes, if you allow me, but for a minute, one thing. Yes. Last thing I want to tell women also, there is some woman who, you were speaking earlier about the sexual harassment, but there's some woman who dress naked. They walk almost naked.
That's true.
I don't know.
Advertising it.
If there is a man will harass those women, I think the fault of that woman, because those women is not respecting themselves when they walk naked.
But that's their problem. That's their problem. That does not give any man permission to touch her if she walks around with her breasts hanging out for all to see.
That's the Patrice I know.
No,
that is not their problem.
I ask a question, lady. Can I ask a question, please?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Are you believing in the Christian religion, right? You're Christian, right?
My religion has nothing to do with her choices.
No, hold on.
If it's her choices, and she lives with the consequences, but it does not give a man the right to touch her without permission.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Please, just listen to my question properly. If you see those nuns, you know the Catholic nuns, how they dress, and you see a woman naked and both of them walking in the road together, the men, who will they harass? The naked woman or the Catholic nun?
But does it make it right, though? But does it make it right?
Right, and the point is...
it does not make it right.
The point,
you're encouraging the men.
No.
Encouraging the men to do so.
Are they?
Because if you're not respecting yourself and dressing respectably, I think you deserve what you get.
We are solely responsible for our own actions. We do not impute. Hold on. We were not responsible for other people. Each one of us is responsible for the choice we make. We cannot impute our beliefs, our morals, our values on somebody else because we think it's wrong. However, when you cross certain boundaries, you then make it that person's problem. I am sorry, irrespective of who is walking in the nun's outfit and who is walking in the in what we call the bati rider.
No, I will ask you a question. If you see two women, all right, you are a woman. I ask you, if you see two men, one dressing his clothes, walking in the road, and one walking naked, which one you will respect?
It depends on how we look.
No, hold on. I understand this question. I understand this.
In all seriousness, the topic is sexual harassment, and it doesn't matter how a person dresses. It doesn't matter whether we think it's right or wrong. You, as a man, have no right to sexually harass a woman because she's dressed a certain.
I'm not
she's
saying
an actor. Let me finish the point. No man has the right to sexually harass her, regardless of how she dresses. However, I agree that women must respect themselves and they should dress appropriately when they're going into public places. So that is the point. We must respect our bodies and dress appropriately. But however a woman chooses to dress, no one has the right to touch her unless invited to do so.
And Colin,
I'm not saying that they should not touch a woman or harass a woman. I am a Muslim. I believe the only relationship between man and woman is marriage.
You see, Colin, you should have said that up front. I think we would have had a better understanding because your religious views are different from our Christian views to some extent. But certainly I know the discipline of the Muslim is completely different. And the ladies will jump in there with other things, but that's a religion and a belief that we're not going to interfere with you on, and we're not. I'm certainly not going. No, what I'm asking you to just wrap it up for us, so we have some other callers coming through, and I really appreciate your call.
I just want to say, my personal view, I respect a woman who not walking naked.
But at the same,
walking naked, I don't respect her.
Right. But at the same time, you're saying that doesn't give you the right to sexually harass her, correct?
He said they deserve what they get.
Right.
That's what he said.
So, but you do agree that still does not give you the right to sexually harass her, correct?
I don't agree with harassing any woman.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
In any shape or form.
Yeah.
That is a crime, and the person who harassed a woman should go to jail or should be hanged.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your call, caller.
I think we should jail whomever does the harassment, men
women
or
too.
women.
Of course,
sometimes women sexual
men
harassment
or women.
Because I heard the point you made earlier, Joey, when you talk about a man at the workplace touching another co-worker on the backside and so on. And then the caller also raised the point about women used to be seen as property, and that is true. That was in the old English law. Yeah. And I was telling Patrice not too long ago that in the old English law, there was this thing where a woman was considered chattel, so a woman was property. And it was literally in the law. Yeah. And a man had a right to beat his wife. Yeah. What he beat her with could not be any longer than his thumb, basically, but that was in the law. Yeah. And can you imagine if that was in the law today? But unfortunately for us, some men still think they own women.
Yeah, and the point is, a woman's dress code is one thing. That does not give any man the right to sexually harass or rape.
No, it doesn't.
We can't add that as an excuse. It's wrong.
We had a very heated discussion about a similar topic like this a week or so ago, and the point that was brought out and that was reinforced is that we are sentient beings. We are not held to instinct like some animals are.
Right. But
we have the capability to make active choices.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I actually partially agree with your caller up to a certain point. Yeah. And that people, and this is a message we should be teaching our young women, is that listen, when someone looks at you in the first 90 seconds of just looking at you, they will determine 7 things about you, and they have not even heard you open your mouth.
Right.
So appearances do matter.
Of course,
and one of the things that they judge you on, believe it or not, is your moral character simply by looking at you.
The way you dress.
So, having said that, I mean, I'm not giving wrong right, but what I'm saying is the caller has a point. That we need to be conscious of the message that we're putting out there in terms of our body language and in terms of our appearance. It is still your choice to send out whatever message you will wish to send out.
And from a man's point of view, the other thing to add to that is that young women need to understand is that when we look at a woman in that first few seconds and she's advertising, we see that female then as a one for sex, not for a relationship. You have to understand that a single man is just looking now, and it's the one he gets to talk to. That relationship does not build on sex, it builds on conversation and developing a friendship that is mutual. Then and you start to connect, and sex comes later.
You're saying the way a woman dresses is a form of advertising.
It is.
And it sends a message to men that, hey, I'm available, and so on.
I've actually seen women's pictures and women within the Caymanian society on Facebook with pictures saying, I'm displaying my assets. Okay?
So listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Joey, we've seen prostitution here in the Cayman Islands and elsewhere, and you don't see prostitutes dressing in a nun's outfit.
Agreed.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're showing off the assets for a reason. So I think the caller's point is taken.
Agreed. But what we don't want to come across with is this: that does not give a male to be a predator.
Exactly. That is the point.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Listen, the point also, Joey, is when he did the comparison about a nun, what occurred to me is for a predator, it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
It doesn't.
As a matter of fact, a lot of people like dress up, so that nun outfit might be very, very enticing. So let's keep it real here, and that if someone is a true predator, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, and those are the people that we need to eradicate out of our society.
And just to wrap up, for everyone to be clear, is that. Well, we agree that you should dress modestly if you choose to, but if you choose not to, we're not saying that anyone has to.
That's your choice.
Yeah, that's your choice, and
it doesn't.
But I mean, you have to then understand. I think as a woman, if you dress a certain way, that the chances of you getting catcalled at are probably going to be higher, or the chances of you getting unwanted attention are probably going to be higher. But let me just put a little personal information out there for those of us who are top heavy. So in other words, we have big breasts.
Right.
I think we can say that.
Yeah,
right?
I think we can say that.
Sometimes, it's very difficult to find clothing even to really fit without showing any cleavage. Yeah. And people misinterpret that because they see a little bit of cleavage as somehow you're sending out an invitation for them to, give you their phone number, want to talk to you, and that simply isn't the case. But I understand that we have a caller waiting.
Let's go to the phone lines to the caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, thank you for your call.
One quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What if a woman harasses a man?
Well, I mean, harassment. Yeah, I mean, listen.
Harassment
as women, we're obviously looking at it from our perspective, but it's wrong is wrong, and it doesn't make it right just because it's a man. Just like abuse, there are women out there who are abusers, who abuse children, who abuse men, who abuse other women, and that doesn't make it right. So, we're not trying to be sexist here, but just as women, we're looking at it, I guess, from our perspective.
And it's important to remember that this show is about women's issues, So,
and the thing to answer your question as well, caller, if a woman harasses a man, there are not so many men who are going to go and complain to other men that a woman harassed them. That's one. But the law is equal in the sense that if you find a woman's attentions uncomfortable, you have a right to report that.
Yeah. So she can get arrested, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
now, granted, you can't enjoy it and laugh and have fun with her and then go and report her.
When you get catched by your wife.
No, you can't smile. You can't smile about
that.
No. Yeah. But your question is a good one because a lot of times we look at harassment and we look at abuse and we think that the man must automatically be the abuser or the person who's doing the harassing, when in fact it could be the other way around.
Right. But I mean, statistically speaking, caller, in the majority of cases, it is male on female.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is I think, correct in that it doesn't exclude a woman harassing a man. I mean, it certainly can happen, and it does happen.
And here's another support system that could possibly be implemented. Having systems in place that men can report that with some dignity.
That's right.
Because that's the most important thing for them. They feel like that loss of... that sense of maleness gets diminished in that situation. I mean, you feel... You get a sense of what a woman feels like when she's been assaulted. That violation.
And we're getting better at that, ladies. I mean, I've been involved with more open discussions with men about this kind of thing, and men who are saying, hey, you know what, I don't want that in my life anymore. Mm-hmm. And when I get advances, I've actually had conversations with men who have become, who've gotten saved, for example, become true believers in Christianity and salvation. And they're not going around telling everybody. Mm-hmm. And that old lifestyle is still there where women see them and wink at them and they say, it's difficult. In fact, the men have said to me that it seems even more now. I notice some even more now because I'm trying to avoid it, And there's open discussions about how to stay faithful, how to address it, and how to stay loyal and believe to your beliefs as well.
But the thing is, Joey, too, when we talk about sexual harassment, again, that has to be you have to be so careful how that is defined and what it means, because granted, the law explains or defines sexual harassment, but what happens in a case where two people are in a workplace or in a situation and they have a conversation and I touch your arm and you touch my arm and so on, and we
as we do in the Caribbean,
as we do in the Caribbean,
words too,
and exactly, and it seems that we're all on the same page, but then I leave that situation and I think, you know what, you were harassing me and I'm going to tell somebody else. But so again, we have to be very careful. There's a fine line that
this is the thing.
Let me tell you something.
Harassment.
One of the things that my wife keeps warning me about is I have a tendency to respond to my female friends as babe, you know, and I say, hey babe, you doing okay? And all right, talk to you later, babe. And my female friends get it. They're like, you know,
but I'm one of those females. If you're not my friend and you call me that, I will say, don't call me that.
Right. But
me too.
You know, and I don't do it to people like you all who are more of acquaintances of mine, right? Friendly acquaintances. But females.
But it's a very sexual harassment, and this is part of where Juliet's talking about the definition. It's very subjective.
It is.
There's a very subjective element to it, because something that might offend one person may not offend someone else. For example, a lot of Caribbean men from one particular country, and I won't say which one, but we could probably guess, like to catcall a lot. And I've had men from that country say to me, but this is what we do in our own country, and our women don't mind it. And I said, but you're no longer in your own country. And you have people here from all sorts of social backgrounds who would take great offense to that.
And you know what? I've been to Kingston regularly and sat on the street and seeing Jamaican men do that, for example. And the women don't like it. I've watched their body language and they're sick and tired of it. So it's not something that they, if that happens to be Jamaican men, that's not true. You may not be noticing, you're not paying attention, but they don't. A lot of those women are professional, they're well dressed, and they don't appreciate it. But we have a caller. Let's go to the call. Hi, caller, you're on there.
Good afternoon,
Hi,
Mr. Joey.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your call.
I just want to commend you, Joey Ebanks, on yesterday's show.
Thank you.
For being that real representative leader.
Thank you.
Coming from a heart. I was listening to the show, and trust me, you did it well.
Thank you.
So have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay, thank you so very much for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I think you needed that support after all the fire that we've been throwing your way today. That's really good.
This is not so tough. You guys haven't even toughened up yet, and there's 10 minutes left in the show. I expected all kind of firing to be shot at me, but I think the thing is I agree with just about everything you said.
It's hard to have fireworks if it's just damp.
Joey, you don't have a choice. There are 3 women. You're not going to argue with us. 4.
So, you know, we're talking, callers, the number is 946-9898. That's 946-9898. We're going to take a short break because we have to add it in. And when we come back, what do you ladies want to talk about? I think that, well, you have a choice. We have one more segment left. You want to pick a topic?
Domestic abuse.
Domestic abuse. Sounds good to me. So when we come back, folks, we're going to touch on domestic abuse. Hi, welcome back to the Joey Ebanks Radio Show, ladies and gentlemen. The number is 946-9898. I am here with 3 Caribbean Caymanian women, and we're talking about women's issues. And when we left at the break, we talked about coming back to discuss abuse. But in addition to abuse, I'm going to attempt to wrap 3 issues into one for discussion. So it's certainly abuse, but there's teenage pregnancy that we believe is tied to that, connected to that, as well as one cultural issue we have in this country, and that's prior to the seamanship ending, households were ran and governed and controlled by the women. The men were away at sea for a year, 2 years, and children were raised in that environment. And those children today are women and mothers and wives today who never saw that structure with a male presence consistently. But the cash was always there coming in from sea, so everything was available. Does this cause some issues within our society today too?
Where do we start?
Where do you start?
Well, can I just say something? And I know this is not a popular view when it comes to, quote unquote, lack of family planning, but I'm a firm believer that as women, and when we become mothers, we need to really take some responsibility and having some serious conversations with our female children about their obligations to protect themselves sexually and to prevent teenage pregnancy. In this day and age, there is literally no excuse for an unwanted pregnancy.
That's right.
And so, you know, we all say, oh, it happens. It shouldn't be happening.
I agree, son.
And I think we need to take a much firmer approach. And I found that too many times we have young ladies who are even in church and their parents have their heads buried in the sand and believe that their children are not sexually active and they're not willing to have that discussion with them. And they need to be discussing it. They need to sit down and show them a condom, let them understand how to apply it, introduce them to birth control properly, let them know how to use it, pay for it if they need to stop the issue from starting in the first place.
That's right.
And if we stop all of these unwanted teenage pregnancies, a lot of the issues that flow from that become non-issues, in my opinion. So I think we really need to address that particular issue which with a much firmer hand.
I agree.
And starting earlier.
And coming
starting
back
that
to
discussion.
But coming back to the point where you talk about the fathers not being in the home and so on.
The seamanship years.
Exactly. What happens sometimes with teenagers is if they sometimes it's, you know, this boy, he loves me, he treats me well, he takes care of me or whatever, and sometimes it's because they're not getting that kind of attention at home, so they turn to somebody that they think loves them, who really is just having sex with them, who is not going to be there in the long run in many cases. So sometimes they're looking for love and attention, and they think that having this child with this guy is going to have him stick around forever, and this is what, so they live in a fairy tale world, because again, they've not had these conversations with their parents. They're looking for something that they don't get inside of the home, or not even in the society, because you find that there's some of us in society, we look down on other people's children because of the class that they come from, the family they belong to, and so there's something missing, and they turn to the wrong kinds of people for the attention, and then you have them becoming parents, and then they pass on their what should I say, their lack of self-esteem to their children, and then the cycle continues.
And their lack of boundaries, their lack of understanding of the awareness of their place within their family dynamic, their relationships. They're having to then figure out, as adults, how do I relate to a man in a way that's appropriate, in a way that establishes good communication and trust, that says you don't have the right to isolate me, intimidate me, to bully me, to basically do all of those 7 factors of abuse. You have no right to do that. I mean, women feel that instinctively that this isn't right. But if their sense of awareness is so low or so minimal, how do they even address it? How do they say it? How do they say to the person that's providing them with the money to buy that nice outfit, and that nice outfit makes me feel good for a moment? I mean, you're looking at a very complex issue in which the social dynamics are missing. It then leads to further perpetuation of those incorrect social dynamics. And we've got a caller, so I'm going to yield to the caller.
All right, we're going straight to the phone lines. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Thank you for your call.
I think bad parenting have a lot to do with this thing, you know.
I would agree with you.
Yes. I've been saying for years that the best program we've ever had in this country has been the parenting program that no longer exists. This was truly a nation-building program because we were able to take experts out in the field, and we had meetings and discussions, and we were able to help solve some of these problems. Caller, you still there?
The caller's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to say too that parents need to take it upon themselves. Listen, there's so much information that is out there that if parents are truly interested in learning how to become better parents, they can go and seek out that information.
And to have discussions amongst their peers, man, their female friends, chat. But we have a caller on the line. Let's go straight to the phone lines. Hi, caller, you're on there.
I never finished talking, sir.
Sorry, madam. Thank you for your call. Thank you for calling back.
Here, what is one of the most problematic taking place in this parenting modern times? Imagine you have your young child going to school and you're giving them BlackBerry and all these things. They're going to school, they're going to learn, they don't go to BBM. So that is one of the most corporate in the school system, this BlackBerry thing where they're on the internet doing all type of things.
Yeah. Well,
and they're giving out the pin to all sort of people they don't know.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
So all type of things is going on the phone that the parents do not know about.
Yes, ma'am.
But
all man of different ages, we older than them could be dead fathers.
That's true. That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is sometimes
look into that.
Yeah, and sometimes parents will see all of a sudden that your daughter has a phone and you know you didn't buy it for them, and the daughter has no job. I mean, parents need to step up and say, you know, where did you get this phone from, and why do you have it? And so you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. But thank
you all for listening to my comment.
Thank you for calling, man.
And Joey, the caller spoke about bad parenting, and I again, in defense of some parents, because they never had the training and they didn't have it themselves, it is impossible for them to kind of know what is the right thing to do. So sometimes again, I come back to the cycle continues. If a parent didn't have good parenting skills at home when they were kids, they have learned now not to be the best parent.
There are ways to learn things through your interaction with other women, with other parents. I'm sorry, but I've seen fully grown people overcome some amazing obstacles in terms of hardships, and we're not talking just financial, and we're talking emotional and physical hardships, and they're able to overcome it. But it's not always about them being thrown into a program. It's their association, their interaction, their discussions, and until we stop being so secretive about what our problems are.
You see, in a lot of instances, because we live in such a small society, that secrecy is a key obstacle for us progressing. And parents need to understand that the environment changes. Okay, so what worked for our parents is not going to work today. We've changed. We've progressed to a certain stage where you need to adopt. There are new dangers now.
Of course.
That you need to be aware of. And they're less. And others have gone away. There are some dangers that no longer exist that our parents had to deal with. So you need to change your method of how you approach raising your child, you know? Right. I mean, I don't believe that today that the strap is as powerful as the tongue, you know? And in a lot of instances.
We need to get back to the days where your neighbor helped grow your kids.
That's right, the village.
Thank you.
The village concept. And that's important. And
I can share a really, really interesting example about that. There's a young man in my community growing up. My sons, all his friends were my children. And he did something he wasn't supposed to do. He took a motorbike and he was riding this bike without a helmet, without a license and so on. He went to court. His mother and I were in court. And when the magistrate said, "Is your mother here?" his mother turned to me and said, "You stand up."
Yeah.
I turned to her and said, "But you're his mother." She said, "Well, the two of us are going to stand up." So when the magistrate said, "So how come you have two mothers?" And we explained he's one of the kids in the village, you know, as we call it, and he's our son. And she said to him, "Young man, let me tell you something. You have two mothers. Don't ever let me see you back in here again. For your two mothers, you shouldn't be disrespecting them." But that village thing doesn't happen as much as it used to.
As it should,
And it really is a very important thing for raising people's children. I knew my neighbors could spank me if I was doing something wrong. Oh, yeah. You look at somebody's child now, and you speak to them not even harshly.
Their parents come beat you up.
Exactly.
Police.
I think teachers are going through this every day. That's fair.
But I think ultimately parents have to recognize that no one is going to have your child's best interest at heart like you will.
That's right.
Not a single teacher in the world, not an aunt, an uncle, or anybody else really in most cases. So whilst we would like for things to go back to how they were 50 years ago or 25 years ago, where the community was raising your child, in this day and age, the chances of you wanting your neighbor to raise your child is probably very slim. So you need to be prepared to do it yourself. And this comes back to family planning, Joey, where we seem to be, you know, of a community where we don't believe in birth control, or we don't believe in sitting down and saying, okay, I know that I can only afford 2 children, or, you know, I only want 2 children because that's all I can emotionally manage, or maybe I can only emotionally manage the 1 child. Like, we really need to start thinking about these things. And when you get with a partner, having that discussion with them before you even get married, if you're sensible enough to go that far with it, to say, you know, what is it that we want as a family? What are our plans? You know, how many children do we expect to have? You know, what's the long-term plan for their future? And we need to start having those real conversations. Personally, the neighbors that I have in my community right now, I don't want them looking at my children. I don't even want them raising my dog Coco. So hello.
Here's the thing. We have children, girls, I should say, having their menstrual cycle at 9 years old.
Yeah.
So if you're waiting for them to mature in order to have that discussion with them, you've already lost the battle.
That's right.
You've already signed and sealed your child's fate if you haven't had a frank discussion about sex.
Exactly.
And you know,
and then we have these predatory.
Let me. The schools and the school teachers have taken on this role. And they're doing a great job with it, but it doesn't belong there.
I don't personally think they're doing a great job, but anyway.
Well, I'm a man,
and they shouldn't have that role.
Agreed. It's not their role.
Part of the other issue, Joey, is then we also have predatory men in our community who are going after our very young children.
Yeah.
You know, over the weekend I spent some time with a young lady, and I was in a grocery store and I saw a very grown man, probably way older than me, look at her in a way that he should not have looked at her.
That's right.
And I cut my eye at him very hard because we need to discourage that type of behavior.
And that does it. We have a call on the phone. We're going to take the last call and then wrap up the show. So going straight to the phone lines. Hi, caller. You're on there.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi. Thank you for your call.
That I'm really enjoying your conversations you're having. Just to make a point of what all the ladies are actually saying in terms of, you know, young women having their menstrual cycles at 9 and, you know, the teenage pregnancy and so on and so forth. I started, you know, even though this is a personal information, I started mine at 9. My aunt, you know, and also in terms of when you all were speaking about the village raising a child, my aunt actually, you know, I was really close to one of my aunts, and she was, you know, she was my favorite aunt. We spent every weekend with her. And, you know, from the age of 6 or 7, she actually started talking to us about sex, about drugs, about rapists, about predators, about boys, you know. And she told us everything. I mean, she was really, really, really open from the time we were 6 or 7. So by the time I was 12 now, and I had my first serious boyfriend, my mother got pretty much terrified. She was like, oh, my God, I need to start teaching my child about this. And, I kind of got upset because I was like, Mommy, you're a little bit too late because Aunt so-and-so already taught me this stuff, and we're also learning this in school. And, I'm proud to say that I'm going to be 25 this week, and I don't have a child yet, and I'm still, things that she instilled in me from early. I mean, my mother did a fabulous job raising us. My mother, unfortunately, she always told us, I don't want you to have the life that I had. I don't want you to make the choices that I did. Because she had my sister at a young age. She was a teenager when she had my sister. So, she did actually, tell us things and try to warn us about the threats that are out there and try to protect us. She was very, very overprotective. She tried to keep me home. I had my freedom, my first, real breath of freedom when I was 16 or 17. When I got my first license, she's like, "Oh, great. Now I'm going to have to take the engine out of the car to keep you home." Because I first got when I first got my license. But I'm really and truly, it makes a difference. Like
it does.
Some parents think that I should just wait till my daughter is 14 or 15 or 16 before I tell her this. My aunt saved me from making. I mean, I still made silly decisions as I grew, grew older. But I was able to prevent the horrific. I wouldn't say horrific, but the life-changing consequences. Exactly, because of my aunt telling us these things from an extremely early age.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
I'm telling you. That's a great.
This is how we all learn, and I'm sure there are young ladies out there who probably listen to this program right now who are very appreciative of you sharing your personal experiences.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, parents need to understand, that your child might be extremely young and you might want to protect them from the things of the world, but you can only protect them by educating them about the things of the world.
Amen.
Because
That's right.
I always used to argue with my mother, especially when I had, as I said, my first boyfriend, even before that. When I wanted to go somewhere or go out, my cousin, she got to go a lot of places, and I never got to go. And, my mother was always made a valid argument that, you might be in the right place, but at the wrong time. It's just not that I don't trust you. I don't trust the other person that might be out there around you.
Right.
And, I understood that. To this day, I understood that. But, I always used to make the argument, how am I supposed to know how to protect myself when I'm old enough? if you don't show me, if you don't educate me, if you don't tell me what it is, if you don't make me experience it, you know? So parents do need to start from a very early age. And, you know, back in the day, we were still intelligent. When parents used to try to say code words and all that kind of foolishness behind our back, we understood everything.
Newsflash, doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't work. We're smarter than you think. We're your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Thank you so much.
Out there,
that's a great call and a great story.
Absolutely.
You know, because this is one of the things that I actually like about Michelle Obama, if I can bring her into it for a bit, is that, you know, don't celebrate having children as a teenager. You know, there's so much more you still have to do. You know, plan. Doesn't mean you don't have to have sex. You know, you can have safe sex, and I'm not encouraging them to have sex. But if you're going to do it, you can have safe sex, and you don't necessarily have to have unprotected sex. So we have to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Like I said, my great grandfather had 19 children. The dude had children when he was a teenager. Okay. This has not started today. This is not this generation's issue. This is a whole issue. Okay? This has been going on for a long time.
It's so interesting, Joey, that you say that, because a lot of the older people seem to have forgotten.
Yeah, they have.
You know, a lot of their own experiences and a lot of the things that they did. So when you speak to them and how they speak to younger people, they come from it from an angle of, oh, they don't comprehend what's going on. They don't understand it. When chances are they were doing just the same or even more than what some of the young people are doing now. So I think we need to always have our dialogue at a very honest level, and I think we've certainly accomplished that here tonight.
Ladies, we're going to wrap it up. That caller was important, so we went over about 9 minutes, but I'm going to ask each one of you to just take your time and just wrap up with some closing remarks. Sandra, you want to kick off?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed being here this evening. It's been a little while since I've been behind the mic, and it certainly brought back some memories for me. And I think the dialogue was very, very encouraging. It's a type of discussions that we need to have on an ongoing basis. So I wish to thank you, Joey, for the invitation to come on the program this evening, and also thank my co-guests for being here on air, and thank all of your callers who participated, because I think, you know, everyone had a very different opinion, but they certainly all added value to the program. So I certainly enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Juliet?
Yes, thank you very much. It was quite an interesting evening. One of the thoughts that I'd like to leave with is that I go back to something that Sandra said earlier, with me having a little bit of empathy for the males in our community, and I can admit that might be so. Not to the detriment of women, but I think that if we're looking at gender equality, we look at what is fair and reasonable for all of us. There are some really, really good men in our society, men who are good fathers. One of the things that we had when we were off the air, the discussion we had was, do men in our society get the unfair treatment when they go to courts in a divorce? Are they the ones who don't get custody of the children? Are they the ones who have to give over the property to the wife and so on, when that wife may not necessarily have been a good wife?
That's right.
But I don't say that to say that I think men should be treated better than women. But what I'm saying is that even in equality, we have to look at how we treat our men. We have to recognize and appreciate the men who are good men, and equally, the men have to respect the women who are the good wives and the good mothers in their lives. So I'm hoping that we take away that equality must be equality, and it's for male and female gender.
Thank you. Patrice?
Thank you so much, Joey, for having me on. I've only contributed maybe a fraction of what it is that I actually came prepared to talk about. We had a series of questions that we submitted to you.
Yes.
And I see in your future another show addressing, maybe choosing one or two of those, because we had so many different topics that we merged into or morphed into, and realizing that social policy is at the heart of so many of our challenges, but it's also at the heart of our opportunities. If only we have and I'm going to get political will to put the money behind some of these social programs. And there needs to be a real assessment of what our community truly needs. And as a woman who's been strong and outspoken, I'd like for our young girls to remember that does not mean that you are a female character.
Right.
It means that you've got an opinion. It means you've got a strong sense of awareness. It means you have a strong sense of self. Don't let anyone beat that down out of you. And I am saying this as somebody who had an experience in which I allowed that to happen to myself. Not anymore.
Right.
It's not happening again.
Right.
And to me, it doesn't matter if you think I'm angry. You're just not going to encroach on my boundaries anymore. How you choose to feel is your choice.
Yeah. So thank you, Patrice. And ladies, I want to say thank you all for agreeing to come. Thank you all for making this a great show. Certainly the one I've enjoyed the most since I've been on the air. And I know I haven't been on the air very long, but I've really enjoyed this. These are issues that are near and dear to my heart, being certainly raised by three women, my mother and two sisters. But if I could offer some advice from a political standpoint to the women in the Caymanian community, is one, get together, vote as a bloc, demand that the women issues be addressed, and two, when you're at work, regardless of where you are, whatever the discussion is, do not leave the table and don't sit on the outskirts. Pull your chair up to the table. Has as much right to be there as any man. Don't let them sit you in the corner to get coffee. That's not your job. Your job is to sit at the table and offer the solutions that I know you have within you. So women have to do their part too. You can't sit back and wait for them to pull you up. They're always going to keep you back there. You need to pull your chair up to the table, and you need to stay at the table, and you need to offer solutions. And if that's interpreted as you being any different from any lady or woman, then the men need to start adjusting the way they think. Don't leave the table. Stay there and fight, and offer your solutions to make this a better place, a better world, and a better country. Don't hesitate to put your name on the ballot, and go out there and fight and make your voice known. So, enough of excuses, because I'm tired of hearing your excuses too. You have a mouth, you can use it. A woman's tongue is very damaging. I've been married for a long time, I understand that. So get to the table, stay at the table, don't walk away, don't waver. Be prepared and control your emotions to some degree, because men like to push your buttons, watch you become emotional, and then use that against you too. However, we know today, statistically and scientifically, that any great leader relies on emotions. So that using that as a black ball or something negative is no longer valuable in the room today as with leadership. Leaders use emotions today or they die. They crash and burn. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We're going to be back tomorrow. I understand Dwayne is going to be on the show with me. And the candidate from West Bay. I'm going to have to confirm that. So tomorrow is Wednesday, and I'm expecting him, so I'll confirm that with him. If not, we'll have another topic or someone else as a guest. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you all.
I'm not afraid to take a stand.